Crazies, it's your girl Daisy. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in this space. This space is a place for you to come and know that you're not alone on this healing journey because I'm right here with you. That's why I care, because I'm on this healing journey also. I know how difficult it can be. It's not easy. And what's worse is when you're going through something and someone gives you their input on what they think you should do, or because they have a degree, yet they can't really relate. Nothing makes you feel more misunderstood than that. And I know what that feels like. And that's why I felt so motivated to start this channel to really help push out the information and to spread awareness about mental health, trauma, healing under the umbrella of wellness. Because that's important. It's important to really tap into yourself so that you don't take those mishaps and repeat the same patterns that maybe your parents repeated, or even the patterns that you went through. So this segment is going to be about reparenting and why it's important. If you tune into my inner child video, that talks about the inner child, and this one is going to be talking about reparenting that, your inner child, and how to do it. Childhood is more than just a brief phase of our lives where we watched cartoons and ate a bunch of cereal and played in the grass and did all these things that are associated with childhood. Not everyone's childhood's like that, though. And even if you had the ideal childhood with two present parents, there are still some things or some ways in how your emotional needs weren't met. And that's what plugging and tuning into yourself is about. It's about learning what are the things that are missing within you or things that you may want to change so that you don't repeat the same patterns. Our childhood is a very important time in our lives because it is our formative years. The formative years where we determine our experiences to be what they are. Those are the experiences that form how we see the world and how we see things around us. Those experiences are what leads us to our adult selves. And it can dictate how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive relationships and interact with our network. If you had a childhood that was abusive, dysfunctional, or parents who were neglectful of you, then reparenting can be something that is really useful. Reparenting is that opportunity for you to give yourself a childhood that you deserve. It is the opportunity to give you the hugs that you needed. When you start the process of reparenting, you reinvest in yourself. And that is a beautiful feeling. Reparenting is a good choice when a lot of the challenges that we face in our adult lives are traced back to those learning experiences in our childhood. So if those experiences were good, then we had wonderful lessons to bring into our adult selves. If you had a childhood that was filled with feelings of inadequacy, feelings of fear, feelings of torment, then it's time to get back to your roots and hold your inner you to give you the love that you deserve so that you can feel adequate, so that you can find balance, so that you can be fearless and ready to conquer the world. Reparenting is simply repairing attachments and belief systems that were formed between ourselves and the people that took care of us in our childhood. Reparenting is beautiful because it gives us the opportunity to build and create a solid foundation, a foundation filled with love and unconditional acceptance. You don't have to hold on tightly to the abuse, neglect, and sadness from the people that constantly criticized you. You can give yourself that safety. Ideally, we would have had two parents who were very self aware or self actualized and gave you the opportunity and space to express your emotions, to identify your emotions, and to be just who you are. But unfortunately, we don't live in a society or reality like that. And a lot of people in this world are born to parents who are what we would call unconscious. So, those unconscious parents are parents who are unaware of their own emotions and don't know how to process them effectively. And they're simply just repeating the hurtful patterns and behaviors that their parents taught them. We have four foundations that can help us successfully reparent ourselves. Those foundations are discipline, joy, self love, and emotional awareness. This helps you reshape the way that your inner child sees yourself and the world around them. Feeling the feeling of joy, it's truly blissful. Now, when it comes to reparenting yourself and recreating your childhood, it does require implementing and creating that feeling of joy that was robbed from us in our childhood. Of course, you can't recapture that same exact innocence that most children have, yet you can still get excited about your life and the opportunities that it brings. And by taking your inner child on this beautiful, wonderful journey, by creating new memories for yourself, new joyful memories, implement joy, and do this daily. A happy childhood is key to having a happy adulthood. But if you didn't have a happy childhood, it doesn't mean that all hope is lost. It just means that you have to do a little bit of more work to get your second shot. Do this by getting in touch with your inner child. You want to do activities that are going to take you to your childhood and replace those painful memories with happy ones, with new ones, with people that you love, with people that make you feel good. So if you want to go to the park and on the swings, do that. If you want to start painting, do that. If you want to go to a trampoline park, do it. At this point, it's important to laugh, to be silly, and to just treat yourself with that self-care and self-love that you never got. Self-love. We all know what self-love is, but do we actually know how to care for ourselves? I did do a video about self-love and why it's important and how to start practicing self-love in your daily lives. So check it out over here. But really, self-love is learning how to care for ourselves in many different ways, whether it's emotionally, mentally, and physically. Practicing that in our adult lives when we're reparenting ourselves allows us to no longer sacrifice that part of ourselves to put other people's needs first. Emotional awareness. Are you really aware of your emotions? Do you tend to have these emotional outbursts, or do you tend to push your emotions to the side until you one day blow up after keeping everything in for too long? This can help you determine how you're able to regulate your emotions, or if you are able to. And learning from this can really help us reparent ourselves. So, whether you were punished when you showed any emotions as a child, or whether you grew up in a very dysfunctional environment when it came to emotions, learning from those things and changing it for the better so that you have a healthier, more positive connection when it comes to your emotional awareness is key in reparenting yourself. Reparenting is wonderful for most adults who didn't have the ideal childhood. Reparenting yourself in your adulthood can really help increase your self esteem. It can help you rework those bad habits. It can help you recreate a greater sense of self love and improve your relationships overall. In order to reparent yourself, it's important to be honest about what went wrong. Learn to get to know your inner child and learn to not judge that inner child of yours. Listen to your inner child when she or he is expressing to you who hurt them. Learn how that made them feel and try to identify ways in how you would have wanted to be heard or to be made feel safe. The best way to do this is just to kind of pretend that you're a stranger as you watch the painful memories unfold in front of you when you're learning to dig deep. And this is part of shadow work as well. And if you haven't seen my shadow work videos, I'm going to link it up here. So before you start to unpack all of this heavy stuff, really try to get into a meditative state or breathe. So whether it's meditation or breath work, those are really key instruments in learning to regulate your emotions to prepare for what's next. Because it's not going to be easy to acknowledge these things at first. However, when you get over that hump, you'll see that you're sailing towards much calmer and smoother waters. Practice compassionate accountability. When you're raised in a dysfunctional home, you learn that outbursts are acceptable and not learning how to control your emotions when triggered. You take that into your adulthood and then start to have conflict in most areas of your life. So when you start to drop the judgment and the criticisms that you have for yourself, only then is when you realize not only that your relationship with yourself improves, your relationship with others improves as well. It's okay to not be perfect all the time. It's okay to not have it right. But just be kind to yourself and give yourself grace and stop the self-loathing. Stop hating yourself for it. Next one is discipline. Joy and having fun memories is important, but having discipline is as well. So figuring out where you want to be in a certain amount of time and how you're going to get there is the strategic part that we were talking about earlier. Create a list of goals for short term and long term. Where do you see yourself in 6 months? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And how are you going to get there? That's one simple way to get started. Implement boundaries. Boundaries are part of discipline, right? What are some things that you need to start doing in order to feel safe and secure? Is it telling your friend no, they can't borrow any more money from you because you developed these people-pleasing habits in your childhood? Is it telling your mom that you only have 5 minutes to have a phone conversation because usually after 5 minutes, that's when your interactions with her start to become more negative? And don't feel guilty about it. It's okay to have boundaries, limits, and discipline. The important thing about childhood and having a healthy one is having caretakers who show you unconditional love. Now, if you didn't have that, then it means that you have to give that to yourself. When you have that unhealed void in your spirit, you tend to look for other people to fulfill that. You tend to look for other people to love you when you should be loving yourself first and foremost. So, how do you do this? How do you show yourself unconditional love? Well, you spend a few minutes talking to your inner child and telling your inner child that you love your inner child. Hug yourself. Say, I love you. Look in the mirror and practice some mirror work. Say some affirmations if that's your thing. Just know that you matter and that you are enough. If your childhood was less than ideal and it was plagued with hardship and tears and sadness and pain, then just know that you can reparent your inner child in your adulthood. It's a long process and it's not going to be easy. I always say doing shadow work first is important in this journey because then you start to really unpack so many of these things that come up that you may not even know where to begin, right? But it all goes hand in hand in this healing journey. So just be honest about the childhood that you had and learn from it. And tell yourself, tell your inner child that it is going to be okay, that you are there for your inner child. What I like to do is I like to get a picture from when I was younger and just speak to the young version of me, right? And tell young Daisy that she's loved, that she's okay, that things are getting better, and that this is what she needed at that point in time. And practice that for yourself, your adult self as well. And I hope with that, things start to blossom in your life. That being said, I hope this resonates with you. I love you if no one told you that today. And just know that you're not alone on this healing journey. Things will get better with time. You just have to believe it and do the work. That being said, I leave you with love, light, and healing. Mwah.